Hey there, it's Scott Oldford. I am one of the leading business mentors, advisors for online businesses in the entire world. And today I actually wanted to share with you my exact process, methodology for helping others plan 7 and 8 figure businesses. This is like the 30,000 foot view. This is not this very specific, minute sort of details. But this is the overview that I've used to help hundreds of people go past 7, multiple 7, many 8-figure businesses. And as I'm recording this, I own about 33 or 34 businesses. And of course, I utilize this strategy with the operators, the CEOs, and the entrepreneurs in those businesses. So I just really, at the end of the day, I get asked the question a lot. And also, just simply due to the fact that it's been in my mind, it's been in my brain for such a long time. I've utilized this process myself, iterated upon it, and I figured that doing a quick, video to be able to share with you, a quick training to be able to share with you how I think about building the strategy might be really beneficial. So with that said, very, very excited to go through this with you. If you want more support, more help, I've added a couple of links below this on this page to be able to get a little bit more support if you want that support, as well as even the ability to have my help planning your business going into the next year or multiple years. So with that said, let's dive into it. I will say that majority of what I'm sharing with you is applicable to most online business owners. I would say that as you get further, past $500,000 a year, $1 million, $2 million a year, this is very critical, very important. You don't want to kind of like skip this stuff. Is what I would really tell you. All right, so let's get into it. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. So, how to plan the strategy for scaling an online business. I would tell you that this is really for being able to scale a 7+ figure business. All right, so here's where I start. I start right from the get-go of I create a list, I get a list. I generally do majority of my planning not on the computer. I try to do as much of my planning in nature without an iPad, just with a notebook. Okay. And it's a different environment that most people don't spend a lot of time in. I like to spend a lot of time as much as I can. I generally walk like 7 miles a day. I try to spend as much time in nature. I live in nature. But I simply list out what's everything that I remember that worked in this past year or this past whatever timeline, what hasn't worked. Okay. And so, my recommendation is for most businesses to keep a track of this on a monthly basis. Hey, here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. Here's what we're working on. But if you're not doing that, you simply write down here. This is everything that worked. Here's everything that didn't work. And why did it work? What's my hypotheses of why it worked, why it didn't work? Now, that may not be necessarily true, but it's the hypotheses. Right? And so you want to have this sort of running list. This is what has worked up to this point. This is what has worked, not has worked. It hasn't really worked at the end of the day. Now, there's no judgment on that. It's just simply this here doesn't really feel like it has energy anymore. And this thing over here does feel like it actually has energy now. All right. So then what I do, okay, I have a whole book on this process. It's called The Nuclear Effect. I'll link it here. I talk about the 6-pillar framework. So here's what I do. I now take a look at the entire business. I take a look at my entire business, whichever one we're talking about, and I take a look at marketing, sales, finance, mindset, operations and delivery, operations and team, and then of course delivery. I simply just take a look at what's everything that is not working in the business. What's everything that has a problem, has an issue in the business, right? And these are logical things necessarily. These aren't necessarily mindset oriented or emotional oriented. Those things are very important in business, but these are very logical, such as our lead generation is only bringing us 100 leads and we need 400. Or we only have 20 days of cash in the bank. Or, our operations just is not scalable for the next level. We don't have the right team member. Again, putting this on paper. Okay, so now we get to the more emotional part, more a mental mindset part, which is the anxiety list. What are the things that are keeping you up at night? What are the things that you are not, maybe mindset blocks? And so it could literally be if X, then Y. right? If I'm afraid that the money's going to run out and I'm not going to have enough money to be able to pay payroll. I'm afraid that if I make too much money, my partner's going to leave me. Right? I'm afraid I'm going to make more money and I'm going to leave my partner. I'm afraid that I'm going to waste all this money I made. Okay, so anxiety list, right? So you get a lot of lists here, right? You're getting a lot of information. You're downloading. You're taking time to be able to actually reflect and understand. Then we want to do a little bit of a life review. Right? And a life review, this can actually take a lot of time. And I remember the first time I really went deep into a life review, I was in Tulum in Mexico, and my wife, we spent 10 days going through our life review. And I took each side to each section and said, okay, what do I like about it? What would I like to improve upon? And I give it a rating. So if I gave my, for example, money a rating of 7.5, what's it look like to go to 8.5? What's it look like to be a 6.5? So in each one of these sections, I'm essentially giving myself some form. You can give yourself an A or an A plus or a B, or you can just forget about the rating system and just simply say, this is what I enjoy. This is what's working well. This is what I would like to go to. And now you understanding where you want to be going, right? What's going on with your relationship to self? What's going on when it comes to the relationship with your family? What's going on when it comes to travel? Do you want to be traveling more? Do you want to have more time? Are you good on time? Do you want to work more? Do you want to spend more time somewhere else? Having that life review, very, very, very important. We don't do it enough most of the time. All right. So then I've done these letters for probably about 10 years. Now you can do them for a year from now. I like to do them 3 years from now, because 3 years, most of us can't imagine 3 years from now. And so the beautiful part about this is because we can't imagine it, we can kind of create whatever we want. So about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, I was in Necker Island, which is Richard Branson's island. I was there with Richard Branson with 30 other entrepreneurs. I was on the beach and I wrote this letter. And he said, here's where I want to be when it comes to money. Here's where I want to come when it comes to family. Here's what I want life to feel like. Now, this wasn't a goal list. This wasn't, I want to have $1 million in the bank. This was what life felt like every single day. This is what my reality was like, but it wasn't necessarily defined on terms of like goals. Right? So it wasn't, I have a McLaren, but it wasn't, I drive a McLaren. It was, I drive in the exact car that I love and enjoy. I take a half a day every week and go for a reflective drive in the mountains of California. Right? So you're describing the feeling and what you're doing. You're not describing the thing as a goal. Right? And so it may be, I spend money on things without needing to check a budget or my bank account. Right? Or it might be, I have more than enough money always. I never need to think about it when I go to spend money. It's really fun looking back at these. It's wild. All right. So now we have a lot of things that you understand, on paper, what's sort of like needed. So now we create an alignment list, all right, a change list. And now I recommend doing this every month, but at the end of the day, the reason I recommend doing this every single month is, if you're going fast and you want to end up right here and you're going fast and you kind of go off course a little bit, you're going to end up over here. And then if you spend a lot more time, you're going to end up over here. And in reality, you wanted to be right there. So what you want to do is you want to look at all the things and you say, okay, what do I know? All right, we're going to get to the things that we maybe don't know. But what are all the things that I know for sure need to be changed or aligned, right? So it might be, hey, I need to let go of this person, right? I need to hire that person. You know what? I need to add an extra $100,000 to the bank at all times because that makes me feel safe and enjoyable. You know what? I need to stop doing, X, Y, and Z thing. There might be 50 things on this list, right? And it's not to say that you're going to even have the ability to go do it tomorrow. You have definite, in a definite way in your body that these are the things that you have to do. I recommend, as I said, I do it every single month. It's my change list, alignment list. I write it out. I write it out just a lot of the time, just on a note. Recently, because of the birth of my son, not that long ago, it'll be 5:00 in the morning, and then I'll be like, okay, you know what? It's time to do it for this month. Right? So the next part, is to define in this next season, because business is about seasons. Are you in a growth phase, a profit phase, or what I call a time phase, or maybe perhaps a stabilization? Let's call it a stabilization phase. Technically, it's a time phase. Technically, it could be a fourth phase, time being, but let's go with growth, profit, and stabilization. So here's kind of what I'd say, which is growth or scale costs a lot of money. Right. So generally a business won't grow like this. If a business grows like that for a long period of time, it will generally implode. So generally what it really looks like, it goes like this, and this, and this, and this. Okay. So there's these times of scale, right? And these times of stabilization. Okay. And so you get to decide. Right? This is a decision. You can decide how long this growth curve is or how long stabilization is. And so generally what you're going to be looking at is, okay, am I committing to a season of high growth, which generally means a lower profitability? Am I committing to a season of stabilization, which is generally mostly utilized on, diversification of your business, really cementing your business model, cementing your marketing systems, your operations, hiring, those types of things? Or is everything sort of stabilized and you're like, you know what? This year, instead of going from 3 million to 5 million, which is, growth, let's just keep 3 million, because you know what? This year, I want to work 15 hours less. Right? In 2020, my 2020, 2021, and then 2022. Now, this is timeless. It doesn't matter when you read this. Or watch this. I think it's going to be useful. But in 2020, I had one of the most profitable years I had. But I wanted more coming into the other years. I wanted more time, and I was okay sacrificing some of the money for that. Okay. So as I'm coming along here, the amount that I work in 2022 versus 2020 is about 1/5, but I'm only making less, about $500,000 less from 2020 to 2022. Now, of course, there's a ramp to this, but essentially what I said is, I don't want growth right now in these 3 years, these 2 years. Growth's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for stabilization, profit, and time. And I said, I'm willing to commit to that for 24 plus months, 24 to 36 months. And by doing that, here's what I did. I said no to the things. I said no to more ad spend. I said no to bigger team. I said no to other products. I said no to a lot of customers because I was very clear on what it is. So you have to decide in this next season, what am I committing to? Because that will then change the type of plan that makes sense for you. Then we go to, what am I focused on? And so now it's taking all those things and saying, what problems do I need to solve? What opportunities do I have? Right? If you're looking at your 6 pillars and you're looking at everything, you see, I want to grow. But you know what? If I want to go from 2 million to 5 million, I know that my operations and delivery will break at 5 million. So what are you focused on? You're committing to a stabilization period where you are focused on this. And so the things that you are focusing now on and you're building your plan around are not, let's get more leads. Let's get more revenue. You're focused on, let's get this ready. Let's get this ready so that we can scale. Now, on the opposite side, if you said, you know what, it's time to grow, it's time to scale. Now you're looking at, okay, how are we going to do ads? How are we going to do omnipresence? How are we going to implement great marketing and sales? How are we going to do tech sales? Right? How are we going to increase lifetime value? How are we going to get our ROAS up? Right? You're going to be focused on this stuff. Right? Because as entrepreneurs, there's all these things we can focus on. And generally, we're not going to be focused on all the things at the same time. There come seasons inside of the seasons. So then you say, okay, you know what? Here's all that I'm focused on. How do I get there? Right now, I'm starting to understand where I want to go, what season I'm in, what my problems are, what the opportunities are. How do I get to this next level, right? Defining this next sort of level. And so generally what I do is I write down 3 models of how to get there. And so this might be In this model, it might be changing your business model, working more. It may be not investing as much. It may be letting team go. It might be, and so basically you create out 3 specific. Again, when I work with people, I really kind of give them the ideal, best version, and then we kind of implement it from there. So they don't do 3, because obviously this takes a lot of time. If you have a mentor or an advisor that has already been there and done that with you, you obviously condense the amount of time this all takes. But how do I get there? And then what I do, I sit on these, and then I go through a little bit of a process of saying, okay, and you can look at this in many ways. Number 1, logically, which one makes sense? Which one feels good? Right? Which one gets me excited? Which one does it feel like an opportunity? And which one's likely? And then I just sit on this for a while. I might meditate on it. I might go on a vacation. I might just think about it. It's just in my mind. And then finally, I make a choice. I say, all right, from this date to this date, unless something radically changes, I'm committing to model 2. So then I ask, what is needed? Okay, what is needed for that, right? Because in each model, it might say, okay, you know what? I need to have 60 purchases of X product and 800 of Y product, right? So then I'm going to go and I'm going to say, okay, cool, sweet. I know where things are. I know where the alignment's already going. And the alignment list a lot of the time happens potentially afterwards. We create an alignment list first, then we review it afterwards. Sometimes it's created together. A lot of times this could be done in a couple of days. All right. But what is needed? And then I go back through and I say, okay, marketing wise, what's needed? Sales, what's needed? Operations, what's needed? Time, what's needed? Money, what's needed? Like I go through all the resources that are essentially needed to be able to pull off that model. And so then I'm going to see, okay, you know what? We need X number of leads, or we need this many in sales, or we need to make these changes in operations. And then I'm essentially building out a 365, 90 to 180, I'm going to call it, okay, and 30-day plan. All right. So 365, this is high level. It's kind of like this. In X year, I'm going to get done this. Okay. So it's kind of a master list of everything that I want to do. And then I go and say, okay, what makes the most sense in the first 90 days? Now, why I say 90 to 180 is sometimes in business, it makes more sense to plan 6 months versus 3 months. Majority of the time when I help someone plan a business, I help them plan 6 months and only the 6 months. And generally that's because it's really hard. Unless you're past 5 to 10 million a year, it's really actually it's not easy to plan. Or you're very operationally oriented. It's very difficult to plan much more than 6 months ahead of time. And so then I say, okay, in January, we're going to do this, this, and this. And in February, we're going to do this, 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 and this. In March, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and kind of go on. And then further from there, the 30-day plan then says, okay, we're going to do this one thing, and then this all has to happen. Now, how are we going to get this done? Okay, this goes over here, this goes over here, this goes over here. And then, of course, this is where it gets much more micro. I'm never putting, when it comes to the 30-day plans, I'm never actually doing those. Okay, my team does that. I'm not doing that. The last part I really am adhering to is this, which is here's what we're doing in each month based upon this. Right. And then I'm enrolling others. Right. Okay. So I look at this and I say, okay, who do I need to enroll? First person that needs to be enrolled, in my case, my wife, right? Or your significant other. Don't do things without enrolling your significant other. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. Right. Because you had to be enrolled on, hey, here's how much time this is going to take. Here's my energy. Right. Here's what my calendar is going to look like. Here's what our money is going to look like. Right. So then you want to get a couple of your friends, right, to enrolled. If you have an advisor or advisors, mentors, enrolling them, allowing them to see the vision. And of course, they're going to give you, what are they going to give you? They're going to give you feedback. And this feedback is valuable. I don't have the belief system that you have all the answers. I think it's important to be able to listen to others and be able to bring that into our plan. And then finally, whoever's on our team, right? The people that are actually going to help you do this stuff. Because if they do, if these people aren't for you, aren't helping you, aren't enrolled into why this matters, it's going to be you against the world. And in my opinion, you don't really need to do that. Like, you can do that. It can be you against the world, but instead, I would rather you go into the future having a group of people behind you, having a group of people with you. And this is why having community is so important, whether it's team, whether it's a mastermind, whether it's a Facebook group, doesn't matter what it is, but having that group of people in your corner, very important. And people that are going to call you on your shit. People are going to be like, yo, I don't, it's not the fact, and it doesn't mean that they're right, but there is an importance of someone saying, you know what? You've said that last year. Here's what happened last year. Not to put you in the mud, but to make sure that you're not in reality distortion field. Because the last thing you want to do is create your plan from reality distortion field. We want to be realists, right? Opportunistic realists, and then adjustments in the process, right? So every month, creating an alignment list. Every month, creating an anxiety list. Every month, doing your 6-pillar exercise to see what else needs to be essentially fixed. Every single month, being able to say, does this feel good? Am I still on that path? Does this still make sense? Every month, what worked versus what didn't? And then making those adjustments based upon that data, but not too quickly, right? If you do one thing and it doesn't work necessarily the way that you thought, well, you don't actually know if that didn't work or just the response was delayed. Okay. Then you just rinse and repeat this. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of detail. But what I wanted to give you was a frame and structure so that you can take it, do your own version of it, make your own changes in it. This is an iterative process and a very important one for being able to look big vision. I haven't talked about SMART goals and all that type of stuff. I don't know if I necessarily believe in all of that a lot of the time. I believe in intentions. And the beautiful part about this is very intention based. Here's what I want to create. Here's what my life is like. Here's what it looks like. So once this is done, then you want to put it somewhere where you're going to see it every single day and in a condensed version. I don't have some template for you or anything like that. You're going to need to work on what makes sense for you. Some people have it on the screensaver of their phone. Some people have it on their wall. Some people have it as a background on their computer. Some people, they have it as their main thing in their email. Doesn't matter where it is, but you understanding where you're going, the more you pay attention, the more that energy that you're flowing towards something, the more you're paying attention to something, the easier it is to be able to get there. Next time you're going down a road, okay, when you're going down a straight road, you look, right? You look to a tree to the right and you just allow yourself to gravitate towards that. Well, your energy, your attention brought you there. And so it's the same way in business, same way in anything in life. If you want something, you pay attention to it and you get more of it. Friends, that's it. I appreciate you. I love you. And whoever you are, wherever you are, I love that you're an entrepreneur. I love that you're putting good stuff out there. If I can be of any help, I have some links below if you want that help. In my Strategy and Scale VIP and Accelerator program, and that's for people that are right from $5,000 a month right up to $10 million a year. If you want a version of this done with you so that you have a strategy going forward, reviewed by somebody that has done this time and time again. I love doing this. This is some of my favorite work. I love thinking strategy. I'm also really good at it. And I'll be honest with you, doing this stuff takes a lot of time versus having someone that has been where you want to be to help you be able to get there. So with that said, talk to you soon. Bye.